ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Tuesday, July 1st. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Our text line is open, 304-396-TALK. That is 304-396-8255. We're going to keep the text line open all day long. It is open text lines for the entirety of the show. And, of course, there are a few things we can get into today. Obviously, yesterday, with Texas State leaving for the Pac, will play out the rest of its deal, and that's going to be basically a one full season. And in 2026, it'll be a member of the Pac-12. And so the question yesterday, and it continues to be asked, is what does the Sun Belt do next? Does the Sun Belt membership rush into picking up a new 14th member? Do you hold at 13? And what are some of the viable options out there? And, of course, we have heard, and keep it in mind, this has just been speculation, we have heard Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, also, which seems to be the, at least according to a lot of pundits on social media and experts that cover college athletics, that Louisiana Tech is probably going to be the school. And then, of course, some have talked about Liberty. I've talked about Liberty as well. And then you've got the whole, if you wait and see, maybe there will be some available teams in the American. That would be ECU. And I think an ECU and the Sun Belt East would be amazing. It would be a tremendous get for the league. And hopefully, if that does happen, you can renegotiate the contract, because if the American starts bleeding teams, and a lot of people think it might happen, if that does become a reality, we could see ESPN go back and say, look, it's just not worth what it's being paid now. It's not worth it. So what happens, we'll find out. Would you wait and see if there was an outside shot of just waiting and seeing if ECU could be a potential addition to the Sun Belt? Do you hold off on adding teams from Conference USA? And then keep in mind, those teams aren't going anywhere. Right now, where would those teams go? Which team from Conference USA would be in jeopardy of being snatched up from another league? And maybe Liberty? Again, I don't know if Liberty would have an opportunity to go to the ACC, or let's just be honest right now, I don't think the Pac-12 is looking that direction, or the Big 12. I just don't see that happening. Louisiana Tech, same thing. Is Louisiana Tech a viable option for the Pac-12? Probably not. Or the Big 12? Probably not. It's not going anywhere. Western Kentucky is not going anywhere. Middle Tennessee, not going anywhere. And to be quite candid, I thought that Middle Tennessee really dropped the ball. It would have been the southernmost member, and there would have been a little travel involved, and it wouldn't have been as attractive, at least to maybe some in the Middle Tennessee fan base. But I thought that Western and Middle Tennessee going to the MAC, that would have been fun. I absolutely think that would have been fun. And it's got to be better than what you're dealing with now in Conference USA. It's got to be better. The MAC is solid. It's not going anywhere. It's reliable. And it's really, and Marshall helped push it forward, but it's really become a solid league. And, of course, Western, Middle Tennessee, I'm sure the travel would have been better there. Travel's not terrible in the Mid-American Conference. You got that trip to Buffalo, but other than that, it's not terrible whatsoever. So we can get into that with you today. And again, I'll give you the number one more time. It's brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. And speaking of the MAC, and I don't want to hate on the MAC ever. I remember in my youth, the MAC was sort of this punching bag, and I learned probably the hard way that it's not that way anymore. The MAC Sun Belt Challenge, Marshall's date has been announced both for the men and the women. First up, the men will play, and both these games are going to be on November 3rd. The men will be at UMass for this MAC Sunbelt Challenge. And then the Marshall women will play host to Buffalo. That's the first matchup. And then the second matchup will be determined later. And that's going to depend on how well Marshall is doing and how well its most compatible team is as far as resume is concerned. And I felt that even though on the surface this might not have done enough for either league, it was an interesting scheduling fixture. It's also an interesting way to try to generate some exposure. And if you look at it, I don't think it's a bad idea to have one of these, at least in the middle of the season. You can throw one of these higher profile games in. And what this really is, if you're not that familiar with it, it's a scheduling alliance. We're now in year 3 of this thing. And the flip here is that Marshall will play host in early February to the second game, and then the men will play host. The women will be on the road. The matchups are pretty good, actually. If you look at this just from a standpoint of, okay, there's some pretty good matchups here. You've got, on the men's side, App State at Central Michigan. That should be pretty good. And you also have James Madison at Akron. That's not terrible. That's not terrible at all. Arkansas State at Ohio. That will be fun. I actually think that will be fun. And of course, I can't go to that game. I'll be busy. I'll be dealing with the Marshall game that night. But if I could, I'd actually go to see that one. Coastal at Western. Louisiana is going to be at Ball State. Georgia State's at Eastern Michigan. ULM at Northern Illinois. Old Dominion is at Miami of Ohio. Texas State gets to go to Bowling Green. South Alabama gets to go to Toledo. Southern Miss is going to have a fun trip going to Buffalo, and then Troy will be at Kent State. But I like Marshall's matchup, actually, at UMass, and it works for me because Marshall's seen all these teams already. Marshall's played these teams before. Marshall's been in the Mid-American Conference. So what made that work for me was, okay, Marshall and UMass, not the history there that you do have with a lot of these teams. And so it's an interesting matchup. It's different. It's not samey. How many of you would get excited for Marshall at Central Michigan? Probably not. How many of you would get excited for Marshall at Buffalo? No one absolutely would get excited for Marshall at Buffalo. Completely waste of time here. And of course, Marshall makes its own MAC challenge. Marshall makes sure that there are several teams on a consistent basis out of the Mid-American Conference on the schedule. Ohio needs to always be on the schedule. End of story. I don't want to go a season without Ohio not on the schedule. Toledo, I'm okay with it on. I'm okay with it off. Miami of Ohio, I'd like to see that a little bit more. I'd like that one. Those two definitely. The rest I'd be okay with if it was occasional here or there. Yeah, I don't necessarily need Kent State. I don't necessarily need Ball State or Bowling Green. Western Michigan might interest me a little bit, but Ohio, Akron, I'm okay with Akron. Ohio, I'm okay with Miami. UMass, I like this. So that's what your Sunbelt Challenge is. And then, of course, on the women's side, Marshall at least gets to play host to Buffalo, not making that trip. I like the fact that Marshall can play host to Buffalo and not have to go make that trek. So in a sense, it's not going to be one of those long travel odysseys. And of course, Buffalo won the WNIT. So there's the good news there. It's a quality opponent. Buffalo won the WNIT. Marshall rocked it in the conference tournament. And that conference tournament was a gauntlet. Marshall won 4 games in that tournament, showing that it can start putting it together. So you got to be pretty happy. I would think you got to be pretty happy at least with this schedule. If you're not, you know what to do. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Now, again, this isn't just random. This is one of those, you put together the net, you put that together, and then you put together sort of the backlog, the history. Yeah, how many times have these two teams met? I don't think you'd see Marshall and Ohio in the MAC Sunbelt Conference Challenge. I don't think it would work that way because Ohio would be probably on the schedule more times than not. Geography would play a little bit. Of course, that's the league's summary. Geography. Okay, throw geography out. Buffalo at Marshall. Throw geography out in that one. That one does not meet the criteria, but it's a good matchup. And I think Marshall, both sides of this, good way to get a nice non-conference challenge, then get back into conference play. Of course, the second matchup will be the more interesting of the two, I'm sure, just because we'll have a better understanding, better idea of where Marshall, both women and men, fit in the overall picture, and the opponent will be determined based on that. So if Marshall's having a real good year, and let's just say I'll throw Western Michigan out there. Say Marshall and Western Michigan having really good years. You could see that as a second matchup. Our text line, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We've got a lot to get into. We also want to hear from you on today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Follow at Paul Swann on X for Marshall sports updates and more.
We continue on with this Tuesday edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930 with our text line brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Let's go to the text line. Texter wants to know when we're going to see the Marshall men's basketball schedule being released. I think we're close. Of course, you're going to get this announcement out first as far as the MAC Sunbelt Challenge, because this is going to be a part of it. And now that piece is in place, I think we're going to see a little bit more soon. I know there have been some non-conference games out there. If you're not that familiar with the games so far, or at least either official or that are rumored out there, for Marshall, the MAC Sunbelt Challenge, that's November 3rd. Marshall's going to be at Toledo on November 8th. There are games to be scheduled with Elon, Western Kentucky, Ohio, and that's going to be a road game, the Ohio game. UNC Wilmington, that's a road game as well. Western Kentucky. So these are some of the games that are out there that haven't been fully scheduled yet as far as when it's going to be, what time. But that's what the early slate looks like. And again, 4 games on the road early in this schedule. UMass, Ohio, UNC Wilmington, and Toledo. And again, that's part of the reason why you had to put this thing together first with the MAC Sunbelt Challenge. A school like Marshall's going to play at Toledo and going to play in Ohio. There will be Mid-American Conference competition. It just makes sense from a travel standpoint as well. Travel is going to be a big expenditure. And it is July 1st, by the way. So we are in the new era of college athletics. That's right. Payments. We're paying players now. We are here paying players. New college football video game is going to be out soon. And remember, that got shut down years ago with the lawsuit at O'Bannon. That is back. Year 2 of that. EA Sports making the cryptic announcement that the college basketball game is coming back. And I don't know how many of you were fans of that. I can remember playing that on my PS2, I believe. We got to go back almost 20 years for that one. So there are a lot of changes, and change can be good. But the schedule, I think you're going to see, it's got to be travel friendly, because that's what a lot of the expenditures are going to be. You can cut that down as best you can if you're not traveling all over the country. I think that's why, just to lead into it, that's why no one is shedding a tear over Texas State leaving the Sun Belt. I don't think there's anyone that's sitting right now thinking, oh, if only Texas State would have stayed. And I don't have anything against Texas State. I don't have any problem whatsoever. There's no beef. There's no disgust. There's no jealousy. There's nothing. That's a yearly game for a lot of people that you don't have to travel to Texas now for that one, especially with the way travel budgets are, you don't have to make that trip. Now, it wasn't so bad for Marshall in football. Basketball is a little different story, tracking all over the place, and so you want to minimize that as best you can. But I still don't think that Louisiana Tech necessarily is the best play when it comes to this conference realignment. Louisiana might want Louisiana Tech. What does Monroe want? Does Monroe really have enough stroke to say, no, let's put the brakes on this one? 3 schools in Louisiana, is that what you want your conference to look like? 3 schools in Louisiana? It's fine with 2 schools. You have Georgia with Georgia Southern and Georgia State, and that's fine. That's good. Okay, you can have that. That's okay. It's not like it's the ACC where you have Duke, North Carolina, and NC State, 3 distinct fan bases, and that gives you pretty much all of North Carolina for the most part. There are some strong pockets out there. I mentioned ECU earlier. That's a strong pocket. Very, very good fan base. I mentioned Appalachian State only because good. You know what? I don't think good is even the proper way to describe that fan base. Really good. Great. I don't know if I'm going to say great just yet, but it's there. It's very passionate. It's very dedicated as a fan base. But that's different. I don't see that. What are you getting with 3 schools out of Louisiana? Monroe and Louisiana, that's 2. That's fine. You add Louisiana Tech. And again, I don't have anything against Louisiana Tech. It's just, okay, what does this do for me? What does this give me? Or you get into a situation where, all right, if you're going to take a school, if your choices are Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, or Louisiana Tech, I think you make a phone call to Liberty and go, hey, what do you think? Liberty, you come along, and then you pick up, if you want to go to 16, and you can't cherry pick the American, I'm starting to feel the 16 thing a lot more. Texter wants to know, has the MAC moved to replace Northern Illinois? I haven't seen anything yet. And I don't know if the Mid-American Conference would make that move anytime soon. I think it's fine where it's at. That's another situation where if the Mid-American Conference was looking to add a school, where would it go? Which school would it pull to add to its numbers, to add to its profile? I get why Northern decided to leave. And I get why moving your other sports to Horizon League is probably for the best, because you're making that move. You're moving to the Mountain West, but you're football member only. That's going to be a little difficult for the rest of your sports. And so the MAC hasn't really put together sort of this white paper yet. Oh, all right, here are some of the teams that could be MAC schools. And so I'm going to ask you that. If you were trying to add a member to the Mid-American Conference, where would you go? Where would you find a member that fit the Mid-American Conference? And I don't know right now which school I'd tap for that. Would a Conference USA school be the best bet? And if we're talking about that, then you got Western Kentucky and you've got Middle Tennessee. And honestly, I think that was what was going to happen. That was what was going to happen. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That is our number to be a part of today's show here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Save big at Menards and prepare for the summer heat with a new air conditioner from Denali Air. Quickly and efficiently cool your spaces with auto and eco modes to maximize performance and save on energy costs. Cool your space from anywhere in the room with 3 cooling speeds and a remote control. Save big money on Denali air conditioners. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for more great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards.
I pick up litter at the neighborhood park.
I volunteer at my local food bank.
I help build homes in my community.
No matter where you are in West Virginia, there's always a chance to be kind. That's because every Mountaineer is a volunteer. Help us make a difference during the National Day of Service on September 11th. Visit volunteer.wv.gov to find an opportunity near you. Brought to you by Volunteer West Virginia, the West Virginia Broadcasters Association, and this station.
We're definitely going to be late to the concert. I feel like we should be there by now.
I'm just taking a little detour. I gotta fill up my gas tank, and I know this place a couple towns over where the gas is cheaper.
Are you serious? We're going to be late for the concert because you're driving out of the way for cheaper gas? Just use Upside.
What's Upside?
Upside is the free cashback app that gets you real cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait, I can get cash back just for buying the gas I need anyway?
Yes, I use it all the time, and I've made around $200. Now pull over so you can download the Upside app before we miss the concert.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code SEAT25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime, right to your bank, PayPal, or as a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code SEAT25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code SEAT25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's code SEAT25.
This time of year can be chaotic. Ashland Credit Union is here to help you keep up with new and used auto loan rates as low as 4.99% APR.
Starting route.
We'll help you find a vehicle that works as hard as you do. Visit our Ashland, Canonsburg, or Russell locations or visit online at ashlandcu.org.
Arrived.
Wait, did we mention rates as low as 4.99% APR? Okay, good. APR equals annual percentage rate. Not all will qualify for lowest rate. Call 800-245-8112 to learn more.
This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Miss an episode? Catch it anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We continue on with this edition of The Drive. Our text line brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop at 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. A couple of texters written in wanting to know if UMass counts as the replacement to Northern Illinois in the Mid-American Conference. No, I don't think that counts, but that was something that was announced last year. And so UMass begins officially today as a full member of the Mid-American Conference. UMass isn't the replacement for Northern Illinois, with Northern leaving the conference. That will be official next year. But UMass is official now. This is day one of being a member of the Mid-American Conference. The thing I think about the MAC is when Northern finally is out and done, you have 12 teams. Do you rush to add another team? I think with 12 teams, you could get by with 12 teams. 13, unlucky number. You get with 12, so I think you can get by with 12. Maybe you can add a couple more and you can have 14, and that's where that discussion came about Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee package deal. But at that point, I don't know if I would pair the two together. Middle Tennessee didn't seem to care about Western's future, as that could have been a pretty good deal for the Mid-American Conference. Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee in the Mid-American Conference. I would like that. Now, of course, I'm speaking from a outside perspective here. I would be interested in that. Western Kentucky, Ohio, sure. Play that game all the time. It would make sense. I think it would make sense. Maybe to me and only me. But with it standing now, Akron, Ball State, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Central and Eastern Michigan, Kent State, UMass, Miami, Northern Illinois, Ohio, Toledo, and Western Michigan getting set to play the 2025 season. Next year will be a little bit different. And, the MAC could surprise us all. Marshall's not going back to the MAC. So I know there were arguments for that years ago. I might have contributed to some of those arguments, but that's not where we're at now with this conference realignment. It's, for me, what makes the conference better. And I feel like the Louisiana Tech story sounds more like what saves some of the Western Conference schools money. And I don't think that's how you go about putting this together. I think you look at all of your core tenants. The geography's got to make sense, obviously. You have to have some value there. That's got to make sense as well. What does it bring as far as an athletic program is concerned? And I think Marshall has earned its spot in the Sun Belt. Soccer has earned its spot in the Sun Belt. It's strengthened that league on the men's side, actually resurrected soccer on the men's side. I think basketball is starting to earn its place. Football earning its place. Baseball has a legitimate argument now for being worthy of a really good baseball league. There are so many positives I can look at and say, okay, you know what? Marshall has shown that it can be competitive and bring some value to this league. Now, the next member that's brought on board, what can that institution do to elevate the Sun Belt? And I know that it's a dirty word around here right now, but Southern Miss, if it gets good under Charles Huff, that's going to be good for this league. A good Southern Miss, I always felt, was good for Conference USA. A good Southern Miss, I think, could be good for the Sun Belt. You might disagree with me on that, and you're free to do so. But I've always felt that that program, when it's good and when it's competing for championships, that elevated the conference, being Conference USA, and I think that's going to help elevate the Sun Belt. Now, with that being said, obviously I want Marshall to win the championship and potentially beat Southern Miss in the championship game. I would be all for that. But as an institution, I think Southern Miss definitely brings value. I think Old Dominion brings value as well. And JMU definitely has brought value to the Sun Belt. So these were good pickups. Marshall has the evidence to make its case. Look, Marshall is a good pickup for the league. And so here we are. What's going to be the next move for the league? Where do you go? Western Kentucky makes sense to me. Middle, maybe, but not so much. If I was ranking the three right now that have been discussed, Western Kentucky 1 for me, and obviously there's some bias here. Louisiana Tech 2, Middle 3, and I'm not even including Liberty in this because, again, right now we're reaching on that. And ECU, we're definitely reaching right now, and I'm hoping that the league is actually going to take a moment to pause and think about what its options might be and not rush to a decision. Louisiana Tech's going to be right there. It's not going anywhere. Western Kentucky's not going anywhere. Middle Tennessee's not going anywhere right now. Those teams are fine. They'll be there if you need them. And I think you could get a few people on board with Western Kentucky. And I would think, at least on the east side, that would be more attractive than Louisiana Tech. But again, Texas State, that's where the hole is right now. That's where the void is. You lost a Western member, but what did you really lose? Overall, the athletic program overall has a lot of value. It's won the Commissioner's Cup several times. So overall, the athletic department is running a good program. But what do people care about most? Football, basketball, and depending on where you're at, baseball. That's it. Here in Huntington, football, basketball, soccer, baseball, softball. But what makes the money? Football. That's what people care about the most. What makes the money? Basketball. That's what people care about the most. Depending on where you're at, it's either one or two. And then you can stack baseball. You can, in Huntington's case, you can stack soccer up there as well. But football, this is about football. This is always about football. It's not about basketball. It is what happens on Saturdays on the football field that drives this conversation and drives these television packages. Our final segment coming up, and we want to make sure that you're part of it, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We've got some roster news to tell you about. The Appalachian League releasing its roster today for its, I don't want to call it an all-star game, but the Appalachian League Select Team official roster is out. Also, the preseason nods are coming in. We'll tell you a little bit about them when we continue on today's edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Don't miss the big pre-4th of July sale, July 1st through 3rd at Scioto Shoe Mart. Selected men's, women's, and children's casual dress and athletic shoes starting at $10, $20, and up. The entire selection of women's summer sandals, 20% off regular price, excluding Birkenstock hoops and Crocs. Get 25% off the entire selection of women's handbags, accessories, and more. The savings are exploding throughout the store during the pre-4th of July sale at Scioto Shoe Mart, Harding Avenue, Sciotoville, closed July 4th.
Dog Dazzle 2025. It's a Huntington Tri-State summer tradition, and it all kicks off Thursday, July 3rd at Harris Riverfront Park. Dog Dazzle 2025 featuring Matt Stell. Plus, special guest, Madhouse. And don't miss the Big Sandy Superstore Furniture Fireworks Show, lighting up the sky. Gates open at 5 p.m. Enjoy inflatables, ice-cold drinks from the Clark's Pump and Shop beer tents, food trucks, and family fun all night long. Dog Dazzle with Matt Stell. Get to 937thedog.com for free ticket locations. Dog Dazzle 2025 with Matt Stell, Thursday, July 3rd. Presented by the City of Huntington, Cabell County Commission, Blinko Glass Company, Dave & Buster's, Little Caesars, Wendy's, Great Outdoors Marine, Miller Lite, Twisted Tea, Comart, University Ford, One Way Septic, White Claw, Michelob Ultra, Busch Light, Kendrick Communications, and 93.7 The Dog. Dog Dazzle. Kick off your 4th with a bang.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
In 1776, America declared its independence. Since 1979, K&B Pest Control has helped homeowners and businesses in Ohio and West Virginia declare their independence from pests. K&B Pest Control, we will kill for your business.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Dave Wilson, host of Metro News Talk Line, and you're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
It's our final segment for today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Still plenty of time for you. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Phil Steele's got his preseason team already out there. And, of course, for those of you that are big college football fans, Phil has this micro font book that comes out every single year. And, of course, the way that college athletics is becoming so dynamic and with rosters changing, you got to be very, very, very brave to try to put out a college football publication like that on a yearly basis, and Phil does it every single year. Toby Payne selected first team, Phil Steele all Sun Belt, and then Jalen Slappy making the second team. And, of course, the good news for soccer fans is I think we're going to get the men's soccer schedule soon because the women's soccer schedule is out. That was announced briefly. I think it was right as we went on the air. The schedule got announced, and so the women's schedule is out. So that means the men's schedule can't be that far behind. You have home matchups with Glenville State, Fairmont State, also West Virginia, Georgia State, Arkansas State, Old Dominion, and then you have Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss. So that is the women's schedule. Exhibition game against U-Pike. I know fans first, the wording there. You also have a contest with Morehead State, Ohio, Wright State, Murray State, also Georgia Southern on the road, ULM on the road, and JMU. That's going to be on the road as well. And you got a trip to South Alabama, and you got a trip to App State as we get into the conference play. So that's the women's schedule. Hopefully we'll get the men's schedule soon. Interesting there. You've got WVU making an appearance on September 11th at Hoops Family Field. That should be a fun one there, as it's very. I don't think these two programs have met that often. On the men's side, it's become more of a battle. But I think wasn't the last time these two teams met? Wasn't that in 2011? I think that was, if I'm reading that right. I don't recall this series being a series. So WVU Marshall women's soccer, September 11th, Hoops Family Field. That would be a high-profile game for the Thundering Herd, as West Virginia has excelled on the women's side. It's an excellent program. And to get that game, maybe that's the start of having a game yearly. A series between the two programs in soccer makes sense. Of course, on the men's side, that's a conference game. So those games, I think, do make sense, more so than some of the other matchups that people were trying to make happen. Start with these. These are fine. These are good. You don't have to play WVU in everything. It's fine. Play series like this, and you can work your way up to it. Of course, again, you might disagree with me on that, and you know what to do. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Texter said, Paul, I don't want to play WVU in anything. I appreciate the text. I don't know if that's the spirit or not. No, it makes sense. In soccer, it makes perfect sense. Programs on the men's side are competitive. On the women's side, you're trying to build your program, and if you can get a series going with West Virginia, that's always going to be helpful to have a quality opponent on the schedule. And let's be honest, the women's side of things is not where it could be, and you would like to get that to a point where the women are expected to challenge for a conference championship the way the men are expected. And, of course, the men are expected not only to challenge for the conference championship, but to contend for the national championship on a yearly basis. We've got the 2025 Appalachian League Select Team official roster. It's a 23-man roster for an exhibition game against the Collegiate National Team Prospects. It is July 4th, and it's going to be in Kannapolis, North Carolina. That is home to the Kannapolis Cannonballers. So USA Baseball and the Appy League staging an exhibition game on July 4th. 4 Colecat players, 4 making the squad. In the pitching side of things, that's Kenyon Collins, if you need him, the standout from Ona on the squad. So you've got a Marshall player. Also, Carlos Jasmine making the list as a pitcher. And then infielder Ryan Maggie. Ryan Maggie, not only a Mountaineer product, but a Colecat as well. So he's our favorite Mountaineer right now. I think that's fair to say. And then, of course, on the outfielder side, Sal Mineo out of Ohio State, also a selection for the Colecats. So 4 players from the Tri-State Colecats making the list. And again, this is going to be an exhibition game. It's Appalachian League versus USA Baseball. Just another perk as to why this is a solid developmental league for college players. Speaking of the Tri-State Colecats, opening up a 3-game road trip at Bluefield tonight, 6:30, back home this weekend to play host to the Kingsport Axemen. 4th of July, first pitch, 4 p.m. We'll be on the air at 3:45. No show on July 4th right here on ESPN 94.1 at AM 930. Yeah, no Independence Day show. Sorry, we've got baseball. Looking forward to it. We've got baseball coming up tonight. The Pirates got the win over the Cardinals 7-0, Game 2. 6:15 airtime right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. The Red Sox drilled the Reds, smacked them around really good, 13-6. That's the only way I can describe it. It was just utter devastation. 13-6, Game 2 tonight, 7:10 in Boston. Cleveland opening up a series in Chicago, taking on the Cubbies. That is coming up tonight, 8:05. And the WNBA returning to Cleveland Rocks. The league announcing yesterday, we didn't get a chance to really get into this, that Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia will have teams. The Cleveland team will play in 2028. How about that? It is July 1st, so something that's dear to me, maybe not so much to you. Free agency begins in the National Hockey League. So after the show, I'm going to go look at the waiver wire and see what's happening. How many people actually look at the in free agency waiver wire? Is that something that you have to just be really into it? You have to be into it. It's got to be either a blockbuster deal, or you just have to be really into the minutia of that. Any sport, doesn't matter. NFL, NBA, baseball. I mean, unless it's just a blockbuster deal, does anyone really pay attention to that? Or is it just for the person that's going to look at the stats, look at the numbers, look at the financials, look at everything? You know, the diehard, the super fan. It's like the Major League Baseball draft. How many people actually watch how that unfolds? Now, obviously, you wait to see if there's someone's name you know. But it's not a made-for-television event. And unfortunately, the way the NHL put together its draft a few days ago, that was not a made-for-television event as well. The NBA, a little bit better. The only draft that still works for me on television is the NFL draft. You have festival atmospheres for those drafts. People travel far and internationally to be at the draft, to stand outside and watch the names be called. Not the case in any of the other sports. But I think that's going to do it for this one. We got it done, and we got a couple of moments to go. So don't forget, if you would, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Paul Swann. Also, the podcast available anytime, available on your schedule at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And, of course, don't forget, again, we got baseball action coming up tonight right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. It's going to be the Pirates and the Cardinals with a 6:15 airtime. So we'll go on the air here in just a few minutes. And then don't forget, we'll have Coldcats baseball coming up beginning on July 4th with that first pitch set for 4 p.m., 3:45. It'll be our airtime for that. Out of time, but thanks for being a part of it here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We'll do it all over again tomorrow. A couple more texts to come in before we go off the air. Let's get those in real quick. Another person says, Paul, I say drop WVU and everything and stop worrying about them. Thank you for the text. Another texter says, WVU is just scared to play Marshall, so Marshall should drop them. All right, I think that's the theme here. Drop WVU. I don't know if we'll go that far. That's soccer series. It's a conference series anyway, but that soccer series, that's been good. That's been real good. Back at it tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Broadcasting from the Dave & Buster's studios. Eat, drink, play, and watch at Dave & Buster's in the Huntington Mall. ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. WRBC and W231BS Huntington.